Hello, I'm Mrs. Dennis, the career counselor here at Southwestern High School. And I have another alumni here who is going to be speaking to you about his career. So I'll just have you introduce yourself and tell what year you graduated from Southwestern High School.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Kevin Warner, and I'm a 1998 grad. And actually, before we get too far in, before we start, I just wanted to say I loved my time there at Southwest, being a Mustang, and I wish everyone the best, the students, teachers, administration. To the students, you have great teachers. A few of them are still there from my years, even being a 98 grad. So Mrs. Beeling, Miss Lynch, Mr. Meckley, Mr. and Mrs. Flaherty, yourself, Mrs. Dennis. I think even some of my former classmates are now teachers there. So all great people. I hope everyone there is doing well.
Thank you for that. So can you talk a little bit about what it is you do now, what your job is, and kind of how the career path that you took to get into your career?
Yeah, so I work at James Madison University. It's a NCAA Division I athletics program in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And I work as Assistant Athletic Director for Communications here. It's my 16th year on the staff at JMU. And in this specific administrative role, I started that in 2015. As far as career path, I'll actually go all the way back to my time there at Southwest and in middle school. And I would go to all the Mustang football and basketball games home and away with my dad. He taught Mr. Warner for over 30 years there, and he still helps as the football PA announcer and a volunteer at some of the other basketball games and other sports. Those were incredible memories and a lot of really great time spent at games with him. So I've always loved sports, and that's kind of where it started. I noticed in high school, other kids would go socializing at the games or doing other things. And I was paying attention in maybe a different way to what was happening in the game. I knew the stats. I'd read the stats the next day in the paper. I'd follow the strategy, how the game was unfolding. I'd always read the write-up in the paper. And I just knew that as time went on, I was following it in a little different way and really grew a passion for that. I even did a little bit of sports writing there with the school paper at Southwest and the Hanover Evening Sun. I'd fall asleep every night listening to Orioles games on the radio, or loved watching college basketball and football. So sports was always just a really big passion. I attended college as a math major. I had a pretty good math background there at Southwest. And part of my appeal, though, going to JMU was JMU had a sport management program. So early on, I switched from the math major. I finished a math minor, but I got my degree in sport management. And I still remember one of the early assignments I had in my sport management program. They asked us to interview somebody who had a job in sports we thought we might want to have someday. And I thought I wanted to work in professional baseball at the time. My dream actually was to have an office in the warehouse there at Camden Yards. So I drove up to Frederick and I met with a couple of folks who work at the Frederick Keys. One just happened to be a JMU grad and the other happened to be from Spring Grove. So those were some cool connections with the folks I met with. And the JMU grad said, when you get back to JMU, you have to get involved in the media relations office. And one of the things about if you want to work in sports, I think, and this was true for me, you don't necessarily understand what the available jobs are. You watch a game on TV, you know an announcer, you know maybe somebody's got to keep the stats, and you know coaching. But there are so many more jobs in the world of sports and college sports and pro sports. And college really provides that opportunity to get to know those positions and learn what's out there. So I followed his advice. I got involved in our media relations office. And really the rest of my path just kind of started from that point. I volunteered as a student. I was a paid student then, my senior year in the office, keeping stats at games. I did a lot of baseball, but helped other games as well. So a lot of statistics work. That was before the days of social media, so that wasn't part of the job quite yet. And I actually got into a little bit of broadcasting as well with our baseball games. That then, when I graduated, led to an internship with the Colonial Athletic Association, which is the conference JMU has been part of up until now. Then I worked for 2 years at a Division III school, Eastern Mennonite University. I got the opportunity to return here to JMU and started kind of an entry-level position. I've had a couple of different promotions and new opportunities over time, and that's led to the administrative role that I'm in now, overseeing our communications.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, your progression. And, I know there's so many students that we have here that I've talked to that are interested in maybe playing sports. And sometimes if that doesn't work out, this might be a path that they could follow as well. So that's great advice. So which of the 16 national career clusters do you think that this would fall into?
Yeah, so when I took a look at the clusters, I think it probably overlaps into a number of different areas. I think arts, AV, technology, and communications was the first one I looked at because PR specialist falls under that, and public relations really is kind of the nuts and bolts of my position. But I think there's overlap into a lot of areas. There's a lot of marketing in what we do and in promoting our brand. Certainly higher education. I'm not directly involved as a professor, though I did teach as an adjunct professor for 10 years, but just working in the higher education environment, certainly that's part of it. And even business management and administration from a leadership standpoint within the organization. So I think it overlaps a lot of those. At the end of the day, my role is it's PR specialist, it's kind of brand manager, spokesperson, higher education administrator. It kind of all fits together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what do you find to be the most challenging part of your job?
So there are some negative situations. I tell people a lot of my job is summarized brand promotion and brand protection. What are you doing to promote the brand, in this case, JMU Athletics, and what are you doing to protect it? And when you get to the protecting part, sometimes there's negative things we have to deal with. Actually, just last week, I had to deal with a situation where we're in the process of switching sports conferences. We're moving from the CAA to the Sun Belt Conference and joining FBS football, the highest level of Division I. And unfortunately, we're having to navigate a situation where, because of that transition, our athletes can't compete in championships in our conference. And that's been a lot of media impact. I've spoken with the national media dealing with that story over the last couple of weeks. ESPN, The Athletic, The Washington Post, USA Today, a whole bunch of folks. So those negative issues are never fun, or dealing with a discipline type issue with a student athlete or player suspension. But really, in this line of work, it's the time demands. Sports is not a 40-hour-a-week job. Almost anything you're going to do in sports, communications, coaching, any other area, it's not 40 hours a week. And if you think about it, when do sports events happen? They happen at night and on the weekends, because student athletes, first of all, have class during the day. And then if you want people to attend the games, it's when they're not working. It's nights and weekends. So if you want people to attend or watch on TV. So if you work in sports, you're going to have the regular 40-hour-a-week job plus the nights and weekends. So that's by far the biggest challenge. It's a lot to balance, especially to maintain a healthy family life.
Very good points. How about the positive parts of the job?
At the end of the day, you're working in sports, and sports is fun. It's serious work at the same time, but if you love sports, then while you have a job, I think you'll never truly work. You enjoy what you're doing, and it's really also about the people. Our student athletes and everybody around me, they're just great people involved in this line of work. Everything we do on a daily basis is to support our student athletes and try to give them the best experience in their 4 or 5 years of intercollegiate competition. So, the people that you work with, the people that you help promote and support are really what makes it rewarding. But I would say every day is different. There's always new challenges. There's no routine, and I love that. There's no day that looks like the day before, and the next day is not going to look like it either. Again, I just don't think it doesn't feel like work to me. I'm blessed that I found something that applies my knowledge and skills and abilities and allows me to do something I enjoy and support my family. But also you get to be part of really big things. And those are the fun moments when something you put a lot of work into pays off. So things like our announcement a week or two ago of switching to the Sun Belt Conference, or we've hosted ESPN's football college game day program twice on our campus, which was huge for a school our size. We've played in national championship games in a variety of sports. If people watched just this past June, the Women's College World Series in softball, and a lot of great attention that got. Those type of events are a lot of work, a lot of hours, but also really rewarding. And when you work in sports and you have those types of achievements, that's what makes it all worth it.
Awesome. So what kind of person do you think would be best suited for these types of jobs?
Yeah, so I think there's a variety of skills. I think it starts with communication skills. I work in communications, both written and spoken. Being able to articulate thoughts and formulate concise yet thorough communication. Multitasking, I've listed a lot of things that we do, and usually they overlap. You're not just doing one thing at a time. And extremely detail oriented. If you're going to work in communications, you have to be really on top of the details. For example, in my role as spokesperson for the department, I have to make sure I really understand whatever it is that I'm speaking on the department's behalf on this particular issue or topic. Creative, and my background is not necessarily on the creative side, being a more kind of math logical person, but I've had to kind of evolve into that creative thinking mentality, because so much of college sports has evolved into this digital space with social media. If you're going to work in communications in this day and age, social media is the medium that we're using to communicate. And so it really requires some creative thought process to it. You have to be a problem solver. There's going to be a lot of challenges that we face in this line of work. I don't like to take no for an answer. I like to think there is always a solution, and I'm going to try to find it. You have to be proactive. You have to really work hard to find opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities. A really hard work ethic. I mentioned the workload and the hours, and be selfless. And that's one people may not think about, but when you work in public relations, it's not about you. It's about the organization you work for, and usually our student athletes and coaches, or my boss, the director of athletics. So I don't get a byline on any of my work. There's no place to really have an ego in this line of work. It's really selfless work. You pour a lot in, and it's the intrinsic internal rewards that you get out of it.
And if I recall correctly, you have a pretty easygoing personality too, and I'm sure that suits you well for this job because, like you were talking about the challenges maybe that you face and communicating with people, you just have to have that kind of personality of dealing with people.
Yeah, a lot of flexibility, a lot of kind of rolling with the punches, and treating people always with respect.
Sure. So what kind of suggestions would you have for any Southwestern students while they are here if they're looking at going into these kind of professions?
Yeah, first of all, I think observation is a really powerful tool. There's no reason, even right now, if you're attending games there at Southwest or watching games on television, start to take notice to what you're watching. What are the people doing in that game you're watching on TV or in person, and not just the announcers, but like I said, there's so many other people. So maybe it's graphics on a TV broadcast or the score or replay, the camera operators, When you watch a game on TV, there's 25 or 30 people part of that broadcast. Whatever your favorite team is, follow that team on social media and think about, don't just say, hey, that's a really cool post, I enjoyed it. Think about the strategy that went into it, the content that they built for that particular post, and why did they do that? Start to read articles. Even better yet, read really good sports journalists. I know the newspaper industry can be, it's had its better days, but at the same time, there's still a place for really good journalism in the world of sports. So find those folks and read them. That'll make you better as a communicator, or really any way that you want to follow sports. I think being on top of that matters. Find people in the profession that you can interview and start to learn about what are jobs that are out there, whether it's myself, another Southwest alum, or just go to the staff directory of a college that you like and find a job that sounds interesting. Ask them questions. I think people would be surprised how open and willing folks in the profession are to help and mentor someone who's looking to get into it.
And do you know about job openings that, for these kind of professions?
Yeah, it's still a good industry, I think. And I've mentioned the social media aspect of it. That's created so much demand in this industry, the creative side of it, because really that's how colleges are reaching their constituents in this day and age, whether it's donors, prospective recruits, or students at the school, or fans in general. Social media is the key, and those jobs are so in demand. We have positions right now that honestly we can't fill. We can't find enough qualified people because so many schools are trying to hire those folks right now. So, and that's true even in college sports and in professional sports. It's whether it's the creative side or just public relations and communications in general, it's a healthy field at the moment, and there's a lot of really good opportunity.
Do you have any other advice for our students, and in general, any kind of advice?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, enjoy high school. There's a lot of opportunity there, whether that's things to get involved with or just social opportunities. Soak it all up while you can. I'm a big proponent of the value of the in-person college experience, the benefits of not just academic learning, but experiential learning that happens in a college, and even opportunities for life and personal development and self-formation. I think all of that has such a strong impact. So I would advise anybody, go to college and be ready that what you get out of college is going to go so far beyond just your academic learning. So much positive growth happens in that environment. And then from a work standpoint, find something that you enjoy and pour your passion and energy into that. If you're going to do something for 30 or 40 years, you might as well enjoy it. I'm blessed that I have a job. I've never once in 20 years looked at the clock to see, when is it going to be 5 o'clock? Is my workday over yet? And I think that's a pretty good thing to be able to say. But also take advantage of all of the learning that happens in high school, because you never know what might end up being a skill that you're going to need someday. It's interesting because I've mentioned it. Math was really my strong point in the sciences in high school. And it's interesting because English is the one class that I did not do honors in. And now I work in communications and I write way more than I use math. I still use math, but my writing and communication skills are so much more part of my day to day. And I look back and that even started at Southwest, and the formation and skill learning that I learned back then. My favorite class probably goes all the way back to in middle school in Mr. Smith's writing class. I just really enjoyed that. That helped me to grow in being able to express myself. And I don't do creative writing. I do more press release and feature writing, but it all works together. It's all skill development. that is going to pay off for you someday.
Oh, wonderful. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. I think you provided so much great advice to our students relating to careers in the sports industry, but just in general too. And as I've said to all of our people that do these, I'm so proud of you and just where you are. And I wish you a lot of good luck in all that you do and just representing our school.
Well, I
And
appreciate
you
it.
make,
Thank you for thinking of me and having me on here.
certainly. Take care. And if any student does want to get additional information, you would be okay with sharing
Yeah,
your contact
absolutely.
information.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks again.